Got fish. Had to work hard for fish. I had a lot more blanks this year than I had in other years, and had to work ridiculously harder to get clients on fish. I had good sport on the springers. I really had a great sport on the springers, and I thought I was living a charmed life. And then the grills came and kicked me in the arse. I found that I couldn't find grills. I really couldn't find grills. I wouldn't go as far as to say that the grills run didn't really happen, but it didn't happen for me.
Hello and welcome to the Ireland on Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. Before we say goodbye to the 2023 salmon season this week, and many anglers will like to say good riddance to it, I'm sure, we wanted to find out how Ireland's most iconic salmon river, the Moy, has fared, and what good news we can glean from that part of the country. So Garrett Ruigrok, who we spoke to back in May, who is a casting instructor and guide, as well as a committee member of the East Mayo Anglers Association, joins us on this week's episode to tell us more about the season gone by. But first, Tom, you're heading into your own final week on Carb now as well.
Yeah, good man, Dara. Yeah, God, where did that go? It's gone. You know, whew, God. Yeah, and it's just finished.
Strange season, was it? Like,
I've had to cancel. I checked my diary today as I was sitting with Storm Agnes beating against the window. I've had 14 cancellations
this year
between the heat wave. Yeah, this year alone. So that'll tell you what it's been like. And this week is virtually a write-off. Got a 1 day this week, and of course, fishing is quite good. Very active. Got a couple of fish in the morning. Rose more fish in the afternoon. Didn't get any of them. I just switched. Yeah, I don't know what happened. As I was saying later on, they didn't want it in the afternoon, so they didn't take it. They were just sort of just messing. What was it? Ken Kennedy said. I don't know. Did we say it in the podcast? There was no malice in their takes, yeah, which was a good way to put that. There was, there just wasn't on. But it has been active. But the week is gone now. Friday is looking okay, so I'll probably get out Friday. But I always keep the last 2 days for myself, so I don't boat. Yeah. That's it. Traditionally, I used to always go out with my dad.
No way.
On the last day. Yeah, always and ever. Myself and my father used to go out the last day.
But you'll still get out, mark the occasion.
Oh yeah. I don't know if I get out Saturday. We get out. Myself and Mike are meant to go out on Saturday. Looking at the weather. Don't know. We'll see. Friday looks good. I'll get out myself on Friday.
Tell me this: those 14 cancellations, is that the most you've had to do in a season?
Yeah.
Do you worry about that as a guide? Like, because guides and farmers are, me as an urban dub, have no understanding of it until I moved to Tipperary and understanding how much your livelihood is affected by the vagaries of the weather. And it's going to be even more so in terms of extreme hots, extreme wet.
Yeah.
And it's so out of your control, without stating the bleeding obvious.
You can't worry about it, Dar. You've got to accept it. It's a bit like any farmers, they have to accept what the weather's thrown at them. You can't save hay when it's been beaten down with rain for the last week. You just can't.
Yeah.
So you can worry about it, but it's not going to change. It's got to change. You need the weather to change. Yeah, and it is probably the most cancellations I've had in a season. It's very interesting. 6, if not 7 days of that were due to heat wave. It wasn't all storm. And actually, there was 1 week. Do you remember we had a mini heat wave? When was it? Early September?
Yes.
There was 1 week where I pulled the plug on a day on Wednesday because it was 23 degrees, flat calm. And the guy wanted to wet fly fish. And I said, look, wasting your time. And the following Monday, I had to cancel for storm.
Nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, just crazy. But look, that's the way it goes. I was chatting to a lad today, and funny enough, I was mentioning it to him, and he's a builder. He says, you know what? Kind of have the same myself as well. So it's not just it affects a lot of people. So look, you gotta
roll with the punches. Grin and bear it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. That's it. And then enjoy it when you do get it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Will you get out? By the way, will you get out?
I'm supposed to be out. Today's Wednesday. Yeah. So as I said in the podcast with Garrett, my kind of windows for when I can get out are very limited. I don't have much movement on it in terms of, and especially now the Rugby World Cup, we're so busy, doing shows every day for the Rugby World Cup.
Because you're doing shows on that. How often are you doing shows on that now?
Every day, and we're doing video and
every day.
We're doing video and audio, video podcasts and audio podcasts. So it's every day, 7 days a week. I'm sick of this shagging thing, but The sooner they get knocked out, the better.
You like your podcast then, Darren, do you?
Don't jinx it. I bloody well will. Would they ever back off home?
So when we finish up here now, this evening, there's nothing you're looking forward to more than doing another bit of editing.
Another bit of editing. So, I was supposed to go fishing today. And bloody Storm Agnes put a kibosh on that. Like the last, and then sure when I was supposed to be fishing with you, when was it? 2 weeks ago? Bloody heat wave put a kibosh on that.
Yep.
So it's, the whole idea of being able to just say, listen, I'm taking Wednesday and that's it. Nowadays, you just have to go, weather's looking good, drop everything, head out. If I catch, great. If not, well, I've got a bit of air.
Yeah, at least you've got out. So come here, that's going to be it. You won't get a chance between now and Saturday, will you?
Maybe Saturday, like literally between 11 o'clock at night and midnight. The last hour of the season.
Hey, come on, it's worth it.
You never know. Look, I'll never say never, you know. So it's, I think my salmon's done. Like I said, I was out in the Blackwater, I think it was last week, for a couple of hours. Caught some beautiful trout. So I've been the last few times I've been out, I've lost one on each time. Yeah. I don't know this curse now is passed on to me, which I need to jinx or I need to get rid of. And I had there was loads of nips then from trout, like they were just nipping at it, the shaggers, like, and got a pull, and I was like, oh, bloody trout. It was a lovely £1.5 trout, like, you know what I mean? Like if I had a 3-weight, like it would have been over the moon with it, like, you know. Yeah. But it was annoying. I bring it back to what Keane O'Boyle said. You had to work for your salmon this year, and if I've got like 2-hour windows, it's not going to happen, you know.
And then, as you said when we were talking to Garrett, when you look at the guy that was up in the beat with you there a while back, you'll hear it in the podcast.
Yes, you'll hear it in the podcast. So look, I think we'll do a proper review maybe in October. We'll do brown trout review, and you know, we'll maybe talk to a few other anglers about their salmon season as well. I'd like to do a saltwater review as well.
Yeah. That'd be good actually.
So we've a hatchery episode to come. So look, we've loads in the can. So even though the salmon the fly fishing season might be over for me, we get to talk about it anyway. And actually, pike fishing, that's going to be on the agenda for me. So
and we've a few fly tying ones.
And a few fly tying, yes, exactly. So enough to keep us busy and to keep all the listeners busy as well. So look, let's get back to this week's guest, Garrett Ruigrok. And don't forget to listen out for our very popular Fulling Mill fly tying competition later in the show. But I first asked Garrett about his salmon season, and of course we did speak to him back in May ahead of the Moy Grills Run and how different things actually did turn out.
When we last spoke, it was the end of May, and we were looking forward to what was to come. And now I only checked my calendar there to start of this week, and we are in the last week of the season. It came around very, very quickly. I've been out a lot with guiding with clients, but also being totally selfish and getting out with buddies, going out having our own bit of fishing. I was out with a buddy on a very small spate river. Oh, it's wild. This place is wild. Buddy of mine, David Devers, brought me out to I would call it a secret little spot. Anyone in the know, it's a fish and tackle graveyard. You can expect either to bust a rod, leave about 15 flies in the fences, or bust waders or break a rod. But we hit fish, landed 2 between us, and met and tugged another couple on a falling spate. Same river. We were on it last week in a falling spate, and we couldn't buy a fish. We saw nothing. So maybe there is a late run of fish coming in. Maybe we just got it on a better day. I'm hearing similar stories on the Moy at the moment. Speaking with Michael Tiernan this morning, he was saying, we're on the back end of a tough year, tough season, but big visitors and anglers coming into his shop. He's saying for the last 2-3 weeks, they're reporting that they're seeing a lot more fish in the pools that a month ago, lads were saying it's devoid of fish, wonder if anything's happening, but now they actually are seeing fish. Whether the fish were there all along and maybe the high water temperatures or pressure conditions weren't right, they weren't being caught. They definitely weren't being caught. They weren't being seen. But now hopefully it's a bit of a positive. We're having reports of fish being seen.
So just tell us then, Garrett, what was the season like in comparison to others?
Don't go there, Tom. Don't go there.
Yeah.
I would love to book the trend and turn around and say it was a great season. People tell me I'm a good angler. People tell me I'm a good guide. I did okay, but I didn't do much better than most others. It was tough. Had to work hard. We got fish. Had to work hard for fish. I had a lot more blanks this year than I had in other years, and had to work ridiculously harder to get clients on fish. How did it go in a nutshell? Whew. I had good sport on the springers. I really had a great sport on the springers, and I thought I was living a charmed life. And then the grills came and kicked me in the arse. I found it. I couldn't find grills. I really couldn't find grills. I wouldn't go as far as to say that the grills run didn't really happen, but it didn't happen for me. We'd good sport on the ridge pool and the Moy fishery at the early part of the year. It came into its own. I think the first fish came off the ridge. I think it's around the 29th of April. The gilly John Howley had it.
Yeah.
Then water was dropping steadily. Fish were holding in the ridge, and we good sport on it up until about the middle of June. Remember when Galway Weir and the ridge pool were closed because the high heat temperatures, water came above 20 degrees, and for fish welfare, it was called a halt. When it reopened after that, it was fishing quite well. You'd have days where there could be 7, 8 fish landed a day on the ridge, and maybe the same amount bumped, and good fish. These were spring fish. As that fish were running through East Mayo, we're recording springers. The Foxford fishery, we're recording springers. The mid beats weren't really from downstream of Foxford. They just seemed to be just flying through. They weren't holding up. But the Foxford fishery, East Mayo, yeah, they were going okay. Then where did we go after that? Temperatures dropped and they reopened the Galway Weir and the ridge, I think in around the 20th of June. And for about a week or so after that, we got good fishing on the lower beats. Then the rains came.
Yeah.
The rain stayed for about 2 months after that. And that I hate to say it or be fatalistic, but that effectively finished the fishing on the Moy fishery beats, the lower beats. They're low water fisheries, but the rains came, they stayed high, and there was no angling pressure in Ballina.
For people who know the Moy, what did the level of the Moy stay at for that part of the summer?
We were getting flood. There was just floods. It was too high for low water. It was spinning and worming really for all of the summer.
Yeah.
The prawners who would similarly like low water weren't getting a chance. It was going from one spate to the next. Like it hardly dropped below 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 at East Mayo. It'd be just dropping, just starting to come into nice order. Boom, another big deluge. See,
so what's the level at East Mayo for fly water?
Ideally for East Mayo, the upper end of it about 0.9 on the gauge at Ballylahan, and down to about 0.50 on the gauge. That's your ideal. That'll open up nearly. You'll have pools throughout the whole lot of the fishery that you'll cover on that. Above 0.9, you want to put your big boy pants on, and you want to put a lot of concrete into your waders. If you're wading, you're not gonna. Want a bit of ballast. Then below 0.5, you just don't have the flow. But you can go brave. You can skate tubes. You can low water tactics. If you know where the fish are lying and holding, and you get a bit of overcast and a bit of a favorable ripple. In low water, that's the Moy technique that we all know, the bubble and fly. Get a good upstream wind on it, a bubble and 2 droppers above the bubble. Belt her across, and you're effectively just skating them. I had someone out from, I think there was Cork, I was guiding a chap, and they refer to it as spinning the fly. And you can see where they're coming from on that. You are effectively spinning slightly upstream, rod tip down, and just work it down and around.
Yeah, technically you are.
You are, and it can be very effective.
But also like all methods, Garrett, there's people who are good at it. It's I know from chatting to guys, people just think, you just chuck it out and that's it, and you bring it across. and hey presto, you catch fish. But it's not just like that.
As you said, someone of that opinion could go down through a pool, stir nothing, and then put the right man coming down the pool behind him, and you'll show him what he left behind.
Yeah.
But while we're speaking about bubble and fly, it just brings me on to the appetite there for fishing on the Moy is still very strong. Look, I have to declare my hand here. As you know, I'm an active member of East Mayo. When we spoke the last time, I think we were putting together a children's day, an introductory day.
How did that go? That was very successful, Garrett, wasn't
it? It went very well. There wasn't the water was okay. It was all right for all methods. On the night we had 59 children arrived. It was a 2-hour event. It was just meant to be for them to come, teach them to cast, let them get a go on the river, just to let them see what's there on their doorstep. But we'd 59 children. People travelled. We'd even a couple of Galway people had to come to Mayo.
No,
to learn how to fly fish.
We had people who came from South County Dublin, even came down. They timed it in with a holiday trip. But with everything
that was
there
great
for them.
because we actually, when we Keno Boylan, remember he was telling us about that.
Good fella. Keane was up there with us.
Yeah, he said he was going to it. Yeah, he's great young lad. Fair play.
He is a great fella. Great enthusiasm, and I have to begrudging compliment. He's a good angler. He is a good angler and a great tyer too.
I have to say, actually, Garrett, the Keanes, actually, I remember Keane when we did the Keane interview, and it's something that's really interesting. Something you said a couple of minutes ago, Garrett, is this year you had to work for the salmon. Like he was saying, like where you might have gone out, years gone by, and in a short session you'd have got a few fish, whereas you'd need to nearly spend the whole day at it to get that same, fish or two. Like, and it's really interesting. You said the same thing. It's you got to work. You had to work at it. You had to keep at it. You had to be persistent.
Well, I think it's coming down to it, lads. The quantity of fish aren't there, unfortunately. I don't want to be the doom and gloom in the room. Who knows what the future holds for the runs of salmon? We don't know. That's, as you know, we're doing a bit of work with Conor Arnold and maybe getting involved in a little bit of lobbying. There are a lot of anglers starting to pull together in private groups. A lot more awareness now as to the fate of the salmon. It's not pretty, unfortunately, and we have an opportunity now to maybe try to intervene to make things a little bit better. We don't want to be known as the generation who sat back and did nothing. Who knows? It may be beyond our control. We don't know, but if we don't try, nothing ventured, nothing gained on it.
I think the government the politicians only sit up and take notice when you can point to the commercial economic kind of, whether it's from drop off and visiting anglers or the tourism is being affected. I think that's the only way they'll actually.
It is the case. It is the case here where I am in the Foxford region. This is not a scientific measurement on it, but judge on a Friday night or Saturday night, you go into Gyrie's Bar, the Mayfly Hotel, normally around the middle of July when the fish are running. It's standing room only. You may not even get in. Unfortunately, this year you'll get in and you'll probably get a seat as well. As we know, it's not all about the fishing. If the fishermen are in town, they'll be out for the pints.
Yep.
It's kind of indicative. Numbers are down, lads. Numbers are down. Between the club I'm involved in, I know the amount of day tickets that are being sold. Speaking with waterkeepers, numbers are down. Well, it was a funny year too, because the river was in flood a lot of the time. The jungle drums were beating that the catch returns weren't as great as previous years. And people like to catch fish. And if people think their chance of catching a fish aren't overly great, a lot of us will still travel, but more fair weather anglers, may not be inclined to. I don't want to be doom and gloom on it, boys, because it is not all doom and gloom. It's not. It is very encouraging to know that there are salmon to be caught there, but at the same time, we can't hide our head in the sand and say it's all wonderful and glorious. So if
I think that would be wrong of us to do that. I think we have to, if it's been poor, I think we have to highlight that. We have to make people aware of it. You can't, you will only get away with that for so long, and it doesn't benefit anybody to be saying that.
Yeah, lads, and down your way, how is the growth run?
Okay. Not good. I was going to say it was great. No, it was very poor. It was very poor. Okay, like I don't do much salmon fishing. I'll do a bit on the lakes in Connemara. And to be honest here, with the way the weather was this year, where we normally go back to the lakes would be Ina or Kilmore or a couple of the other lakes, didn't get to go. On the lake here in Corrib, I didn't move a grilse this year.
Right. Okay.
So that will tell you. Now, normally you'd land a couple every year. They're very incidental. They're a very welcome incidental catch. Okay. It's lovely to get one. And there are days when you could actually target them here because I do know the lies. And if you get a really rip-roaring wave, the day to catch grills on Corrib is the day you're thinking to yourself, should I go out on that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a bit rough? And once you're saying that to yourself, that's the day to go out because they lie in shallow water and the big roller gets them agitated, gets them moving. But I've had some good years here in grills, but this year, no. And on the lies, I've been fishing a lot of the lies lately, and normally they get active in September here. There's only one of the 5 or 6 lies that I would fish that I saw more than 2 or 3 salmon pitching. So no, it's been poor. It's been poor.
Because I don't know. Look, we had very high temperatures, water temperatures earlier in the year, and as you know, brought in a moratorium on fishing for a couple of weeks on the state fisheries. The grills that came after it, did they come after it? We had high water here effectively for 2 months. I don't know on that high water. Did they run straight up to the headwaters? Did they take refuge in Lough Conn? Are they in the deep pools with their heads down? It's hard to know. There's theory around here. No, we didn't have phenomenal grilse fishing. There was one day on a big flood. I think it might have been around mid-July, in around the 12th of July, because it was busy. You'd have a lot of northern visitors here at the time. There was a big flood, and there was a good number of grilse caught on. I think it was on a Monday. Then every car park was full for the Tuesday for the following day, and it was blank. It didn't happen. All the fish went in one pulse. And then after that was the day, that was the summer day to be on the river. I think it was Monday, 10th, 11th, 12th of July, in around that. But after that, our grilse, no, I don't know. They're kind of missing grilse at the moment. Maybe, I don't know if they're missing or they're hiding. Because even now, in the last month or so, when we're out with clients or out on our own and speaking with my buddies, the bulk of the fish we're catching now are coloured up springers.
Right.
You're out there, you're hoping for that elusive fresh run autumn fish, and there's not many of those there now. Although a chap sent me a photo tonight of a fish that came off the Ballina waters, lovely silver clean fish this evening, lovely silver clean.
Right.
But they're more the exception than the rule. But I suppose we were catching for the last 2 months really. They're more springers that were in and coloured up than grilse. So there's theory now in the big high waters that the fish temporarily migrated up into Lough Conn, sat low in it, and now coming closer to mating time, spawning time, that they come back down out of the lake and move to their natural tributaries and stretches of river. Hopefully, we're hoping that the grills were kind of on sabbatical or hiding off elsewhere until now.
That's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes we just don't know, We just don't know. And I suppose sometimes it's the beauty of what we're after. But it would be nice. No, I mean, what you're saying there really it does actually sound really plausible that they could do that. And what you're saying now as well, that there's fish showing in the pools.
Yeah.
And that, the only thing is, and you said at the start, you're not 100% sure whether they're fresh or not. I get the impression you think they're not. You think they're fish that have been in a while. And they may just begin to resurface now and show themselves.
Yeah, and this time of year, earlier when they come in, you're hitting them because there's a feeding mechanism there or a memory of feeding. Now it's a totally different trigger. You're working on the aggression trigger. This is my patch. The territorial males, territorial hens getting ready to. No, look, we don't actively target fish getting ready to spawn. You're looking for that elusive fresh one, but it's a different trigger mechanism on them this time of year. It's the aggression defending their patch.
Yeah.
But you don't mind me coming back to grilse for a moment. I had a couple of outings in Iceland.
Oh, yes.
And they're very, 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 very concerned for their grilse run this year. I was on 2 different systems. I was on the Mid-Fjordara and the East Ranga. And the East Ranga is possibly the most successful hatchery system for Atlantic salmon. It's a dead river. The river was a volcanic eruption, I think, in the 60s or 70s. It's a glacial river, but the silt or the gravel on it is rough edged from the volcanic. So the eggs won't take to the gravel. So every year they put 600,000 smolts out. So effectively the fish can't breed naturally in it. It's a full hatchery system. It's a great success story. Chap Peter Rippon. If ever you're doing a feature on Iceland, Peter Rippon would be a great guy to talk to. Actually, he's coming over to fish Delphi with us on a party in May. Good guy, great guy.
Is he Icelandic or is he English?
No, he's English. He's English, but he lived and operated as a guy. He's been everywhere. You know, he's one of these guys who's been the Seychelles, Scandinavia, Iceland. He spent a lot of time in Iceland now, and then he's leased the fishing rights to this river with his business partner, and they've done a great job of it, guys. They really have a great job. But the season in Iceland is so short; it might only be 12 weeks between the rivers and the glaciers thawing before they freeze up again. And we traditionally have our springers and we have our gross out there. Everything runs in the same band. You'll get a pull of a fish, you land them. It could be, it won't be a 3 pound gross. Their gross aren't 3 pound, or their gross are, they should be 5-6 pounds, or it could be a 15-20 pounder fish. They all run together. We were there for, I don't know, from the third week of July. And only for the springers, our week would have been lean enough. It's very rare, you can say, nearly all the fish we caught were over 10 pound weight, with only a very small amount of gross in it. Great for us because we think we're superstars only catching the big fish. But more worrying that there's a generation, there's a year of fish missing. And this is replicated across a lot of the other systems. So
that's really interesting.
And as we say, and that yes, we know we're fairly certain that most of the issues with salmon is happening at sea, because we are getting a number of smolts going out here. There is a huge amount of in-stream enhancement and gravel work and everything. Our water quality is okay. You know, can be a lot better, but it's a damn sight better than it was in the 70s. Like, if anything, our water quality is getting better, but it is happening at sea. But curious that the feeding grounds for the Icelandic salmon, our fish have to go an extra 2,500 miles out, 2,500 miles back than what the Icelandics do. But for some reason, something happened last year that our fish numbers have reduced greatly. The Icelandics have reduced greatly. Dare we say Scotland you're going fishing in pretty places and getting casting practice in a lot of Scotland at this stage.
Actually, were you in Scotland this year?
Normally, I travel with clients. We do about 4 trips to Scotland, and the men I go to Scotland with opted against it this year.
You actually didn't travel?
Didn't travel because they didn't feel it was worth their while. The same guys, they used to fish Russia quite a bit. Russia's now off the list, and they're diversifying. They're booking trips for golden dorado and the likes in South America, or making a trip for the giant sea trout in Rio Grande or the Tierra del Fuego. And hopefully we can do something before it goes that way for Ireland.
If you're a fly tyer or want to get into fly tying, then this is for you. Ireland on the Fly have teamed up with Fulling Mill to give away a box of fly tying materials with free shipping to one lucky listener each week.
With more than 1,400 products to choose from, each perfectly packed by hand, their new range of fly tying materials warrants closer inspection. From the individually preened marabou feathers to the top secret treatment applied to their new ultra dry yarn, the whole range is packed with standout new products, all generously served up for your benefit in a neat array of colours and sizes.
From zonkers to CDC, bucktail to deer belly, they've done a fantastic job, but just be sure to check it out for yourselves. And to be in with a chance of winning the £50 worth of materials, just answer the following question.
Where was Garrett Ruigrok's most memorable fish of 2023 caught? Email your answer to info@irelandonthefly.com and we will pick a weekly winner for the next 12 weeks.
And for more details, see the show notes and our posts on Instagram at Ireland on the Fly. And congrats to this week's winner, Daniel Lowe. Daniel will be in touch. But first, back to this week's show. A couple of things actually, just when you mentioned Scotland there, Garrett. And it's funny, I was chatting to an English guy earlier today, and he loves his salmon fishing and all fly fishing. He actually lives near the Itchen. And we were just chatting about the salmon season. It kind of put it in context for me, because he was like, I was like, oh yeah, I'd fish the Blackwater, I said, it's only, half an hour from me. And he was like, you can fish a salmon river. And I said, oh yeah, the runs haven't been great this year, he says, but you can go to a salmon river that's 30 minutes from you. He said, I'm in England. He says, I have to go to Scotland. He says, I have to take a couple of days and it's so expensive and, nothing happens. And he says, he says, I'd be down there all the time. I said, if I could get, and it just it made me stop and kind of go, okay, yeah, that's okay. Fair point. You got to take it in context of that, that just at the same time make the most of it while you can. But it's a fair point. Like, I suppose in comparison to Scotland, like what's happening there.
Oh, we're still okay, lads. Some of the spate rivers down west, with some reasonable sport on them this year. If you're there at the right time, right place. But then again, you could do 2-3 days, not get a pull. You go down through. I went down through a pool on a spate river, and I had 2 springers and 2 casts. You may not repeat it again, but lightning can strike, and if you're not on the river or putting the time in, your chances are less likely. But it's undeniable we have to work a lot harder for them now, because the numbers are there.
You've got to do that with spate rivers, though. Really, you've got to take a chance.
Oh yeah.
You really have to take a chance. And it was interesting that one you mentioned earlier on. I do think, in the interest of people that might arrive at that river and could lose their tackle, you should really tell us where it is, so we could put out, don't save people,
Just know you're saying that the amount of barbed wire fences we crossed over it, there was other tackle I was thinking of losing.
Health and safety.
Kevlar waders, is it?
Yeah. Oh, this place, it's a tackle graveyard out there. If you're not breaking rod tips and donating flies to the fences, the barbed wire. There must be a great sale of barbed wire out that country.
But you know what? Isn't that the beauty of some of the spate water fishing? You're just, it's like guerrilla tactics, isn't it?
Oh, totally. And
yeah.
And as I was saying, I'm only living here in Mayo 5 years, and as I said, my buddy David has introduced me to. I knew the mainstream pools on a lot of the spates, but little places you might have to go to. Could be a half-hour walk to get up to maybe fish 2 pools that you'll fish them down in 15 casts per pool. But the fact you're off that beaten track, there could be a fish sitting there that hasn't seen a fly for 2 months, and it's worth it. It's what makes it all worthwhile. Little bit of exploration.
Yeah.
You forget the blanks. You forget all the blanks. One fish landed, or even a fish lost, or turned, or pulled. You forget about a lot of blanks when you get that bit of satisfaction on it.
It's just what you were saying there, Garrett. So true. So I lost one the last time I was out. Lost one, came off. And I'm walking anyway, so it's it was done for the session. I had to go. It was lunchtime, and I'm walking back up, and there's one fella at the beach above me. He'd caught 2 in 2 casts there. You know what I mean? At a different stretch, and it just shows you you're just. But that could have been it for the day,
Yeah,
could have been it for the season.
Yeah.
But at least it was. At least it happened.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the difference is probably that you're hearing of the 1 and 2 if you're out. Going out down to the river, you're hearing of the 1 and 2 being caught, as opposed to everybody else is catching fish as well,
Well, there are still, in here, you say you pop onto the internet and you'll pick your reports online. Here in Foxford, you don't hear if your lads are putting stuff online, they'd nearly be shot. But if you want to hear the truth or hear the lies, you'll go to the pub, you'll go to Gary's bar. That's where everyone will come in and everyone will kind of sync their information there. And there are fish being caught. Like there were fish being caught there a couple of weeks ago.
We call that gilly hour here. Do you know that?
yeah.
We actually call that gilly hour. And here in Curnamone, it's in O'Malley's. And you go down and, just keep an ear open. You never know. Particularly after guys are happy, and particularly after the second bite, and particularly if they have the third, just move over. Then the tongues start wagging.
Another little bit of positive about here. I don't want to go too far on it and jinx it, but our sea trout numbers are starting to pick up here in the Moy region. Um, in the normal period, June, July, it was going okay. A couple of lads took their boats off the estuary, but a buddy of mine, Philip and Paul went out in a little bit of fact finding there on the Moy estuary late fishing there about 2 weeks ago, and they hit over 60 fish for their day.
Wow.
Combination of between spinning, sand eel, and on the fly, and they had a couple of nice lumps in the 2.5, 3 pound bracket. So they're like, there may be something there to. There's always an alternative.
It's interesting you should say that. I'll find out more by the end of the season, but there seems to be, I won't say a big resurgence, but sea trout was marginally better in Connemara this year.
Good. I was
talking
to McAvoy earlier on. He was saying something similar. Their upper lakes, they're starting. It's actually was nearly worth your while actually going out and specifically targeting sea trout for the back end of the season. Fish weren't massive, but the numbers are increasing.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was talking to Joe Crane, and actually, it's funny because when you were talking about the fish, Joe Crane we've had on the show. Joe Crane is doing a lot of work in Ina, and he was telling me that I just met him a couple of days ago, and definitely, and the quality of fish they were getting in Ina. But while we're on the subject of Joe Crane, and back to your most memorable fish, Joe has a great saying about a fish. He says, if he wants it, you won't take it from him.
Yeah. I hope there's a lot more of them out there.
Yeah. But no, that reminded me of that fish. But no, back to him. He was saying, all right, but definitely on Ina, and what they were getting was the fish were in good condition.
Yes,
They were solid. They were, healthy. So, it's nice that you should mention that, and that we should see that, because it's nice to have maybe something to have a little bit of good news.
Well, Garrett, I tell you, it's been great catching up with you, just to kind of get a sense of it. Look, I think anybody listening would have had an idea anyway of the way things were. But look, it's a case of it was tough. There was some fish being caught. You had to work for it. We don't know what's happening. We don't know how it's going to play out next year in terms of kind of the weather, the conditions, the oceans, all that kind of stuff. We can but live in hope. But since we already had you on, Garrett, you gave us your most memorable fish on the fly. Do you have a memorable fish of the season?
I do actually, yeah.
Brilliant.
I do. And it was
excellent.
It was Iceland. I had a couple of lovely fish here. I had but this one this one. It was Iceland. It was a glacial river we're fishing, the East Ranga, and it's not known for surface action, because the fact is glacial is normally a little bit of milkiness in it at all times. But this chap, Peter Rippon, he just happened to be behind us this day, the chap who owns the fishing on it. And he said, Garrett, I think they'll come up and take something off the surface at the minute. I said, really? And he said, any big sunray is there? Biggest sunray I had, this thing, 2.5-inch tube, maybe 6-inch wing on it. Blemmed her out as hard and fast he could, fast flowing river. And his own second cast, about the third, fourth hard strip. Our guide was 200 meters downstream with the other angler, with my buddy. He turned around and he came running. He's saying, I said, how do you know it's in the fish? He said, I saw the take from 200 meters away. This fish porpoised. When a fish wants it. This thing, and it was a 14, we reckon about 14, 15. It was 86 centimeters. This thing just wanted it. Like they say, when you see them coming on the surface, don't pull it away from them. This thing literally pulls the line out of your hand. Smash. Like when a lad is seen to take from 200 meters downriver, that's
special.
Yep, no doubt, no denying.
Wow.
That's my fish of the year. Played him well, all good, fast water, a few photos, and away he goes. That made my trip.
Lovely.
And hopefully, and as we said, lads, the onus is on everyone and everyone fishing related now to start seeing if we can make a difference. At the minute, the only thing we can do is stop killing the fish that actually have a chance of making it to the spawning beds. Yes, there's a lot of... Okay, I'm on my soapbox for the last 3 minutes. I've had the head ripped off me online numerous times this summer for trying to promote a bit of conservation. Yes, most of the trouble is happening out at sea. Something's happening to them there. But the last few that make it back here to the spawning beds, if we're tapping them on the head, we are quite problematic to the issue too. I'm not going to go into this is a chat about the Moy, but the whole salmon policy needs to be looked at and redressed, not just by government policy, but anglers' own internal policy. Think before we tap. Most of us are converted on that front now, but there's still a lot of the fertilizer bag brigade out there. If they catch two, they'll kill two. If they catch three, they'll kill three. If God forbid, if they caught five, they'd be looking to do it. But hopefully, we're all becoming a little bit more progressive, and we can move onwards and upwards. Please God.
Garrett, it's been a pleasure talking to you again. Keep up the great work in terms of with the club, for the kids, for the conservation. Keep flying the flag. Keep the positivity vibes going. I feel like we're something out of The Secret, Just kind of keep imagining it'll happen, But look, here's hoping for a better 2024. And like you said, if you're not out in the water, you won't be catching them. So keep getting out when you can. And I know that the season's pretty much gone, but sure, January the 1st and the drowse won't be long away.
Yeah.
So
amen. Yeah, amen.
Really good to talk to you again, Garrett. And as Dara said there, it's great because in what's been a tough salmon year, it's nice to get a small little bit of positivity. It's really good. Fair play to you.
Thanks, lads.
Our thanks to Garrett Ruigrok for joining us on the show. Don't forget to rate, review, and follow the Ireland on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
plus you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com as well as on Instagram, and myself and Tom will be back with another episode about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.